Let's start. What a joy to have you all here in this wonderful webinar. How UX research works today. So we want to guide you through a little journey from usability to human experience with a little bit of past. I'll focus a bit more on the past. And then next to me is Julia, Dr. Julia Nitschke, iSquare's VP for digital and consulting. Julia is a super mega expert in the field of UX. We know each other from Technical University, where Julia has done her dissertation. We worked for long years at iSquare. Julia was also at eBay, for instance, built up also very big successes like Mobile.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm glad to be here with you, Michael Schiessl, our founder and CEO. And as you said, right, we've known us for, don't ask how long. Yes, and before we look into the presence and maybe even a little bit into the future, Michael, you're going to start with a bit of an historic view back.
Right.
I hope maybe somebody can send me a message. I think you should see our slides. Unfortunately, here in this webinar mode, I don't see or we don't see or hear our participants. Yeah, okay, I just got a Teams message. It seems to work. Great. Then please start, Michael.
Wonderful. So first of all, we wanted to give you an overview on the basic developments in the field of UX. We could kind of also from a timing perspective differentiate three stages. One might be the first usability stage. Then we have the user experience stage. And since 2015 until today, we would consider that human experience is the decisive topic. I saw maybe one question. No, oh, this is going good. So I'm just going to move on, but raise your hands. If it's interactive, then it's certainly nice and good. So going back to the year 1999, we founded iSquare in the year 1999. Looking back, I'm surprised that we are so successful. We had models like that. We had the model of Aufgabe, Computer Benutzer, and usability in core terms could be defined as the task and the user and the interface and the combining function out of that. I think it's all right. So nothing wrong with the model. Today, I would like to make it a little bit more fancy and also to give you Aufgaben, which I constantly give, maybe also since 1999, to understand what an Aufgabe is. You have the Aufgabe now. Finden Sie das N. Find the N. That you found it now, but now it's difficult. Where's the N? You need a certain time for that. Kind of the, in brackets, the usability of that slide could be defined as a function of these times. So it's very functional. Finden Sie das O? Next task. O, ready? Might have been easier for you and you're faster. So this would be a better task. Our first client was a brand which doesn't exist anymore, the brand Quelle. In 1999, we've done the first study for Quelle about their e-commerce shop. And now the question goes to the auditory. How many of 12 usability testers were able to buy something in the e-com shop? You know, just something. Yeah, and anybody wants to raise the hands now and say 0? No. Good. But from 12, 1 of 12, could you raise your hands? That's the right answer. So we had one test subject who was able kind of to buy something on the Quelle online shop I picked out Frau Müller. We did the test at 10 o'clock. She had the Internet Explorer 5.5.0, and you see just tons of problems. In a nutshell, usability was a real catastrophe. Tech didn't work very well, so it was a slow start towards e-commerce for everybody. And usability was a core topic, kind of resolved the issue. Maybe by the year 2005, we had a little bit different websites. They looked like that. I would hand over to Julia for this.
Yeah, actually, that was the time when UX came into play, right? And the focus got a bit broader. So hedonic aspects came in, and also what's happening before the usage itself, right? It wasn't only task scenarios anymore. And thinking of that time, this study came to our mind, right? Here, you can still see that it's been a while ago, the old version of the mobile.de homepage. A goal was actually a usability test, right, of this quick search on the homepage. And what actually happened was there was so much user feedback about the look and feel and the appearance of the site, right, that the usability topic itself really wasn't in focus anymore. And actually, it resulted in a complete redesign and not much later market leadership in Germany, by the way. So that was a great example, right? How the focus shifted from usability to user experience at that time. Then I give back to you, Michael.
And then maybe by the year 2015, could be said that the concept was kind of a little bit extended. So we could say that on the one hand, we indeed had even a bigger, let's use a little psychoanalytical inspired word, desire. So, much bigger things, hope, virtues, values towards something real coming from the system, where you have much broader indicators about perception, about emotion, about thinking. We also tend to call them system 0, system 1, system 2, and a much broader accessibility on the side of prototyping it, which we will elaborate a little bit later about the UX sandbox. And in the middle, you could say, well, there is the human experience, as said, with the level of the perception, with the senses pretty close to the machine, and with emotions and cognitions being a little bit in a broader distance. It's how we would include that today in a full research environment system, which also would allow create, show, and testing. And one example for that is
yeah, this is an example I thought of when I thought about this shift from UX further on to human experience. And as you just mentioned, right, that taking the wishes, desires, and the real into account. And the example that came up to my mind was about payment methods. And I remember for long years when we looked into payment methods in Germany, especially the PayPal colleagues in the US, they always didn't really get what this paying upon invoice is about and why it is so important and why it should be added to PayPal. And actually, if you think of fashion shopping, right, as the real desire, it makes a huge difference, because if you don't have it, it's a bit like thinking of a store or a mall, as if you would have to pay everything you want to try on, right? If you have paying upon invoice, or what PayPal now introduced, I think 2 years ago, this buy now, pay later, that allows you to order different styles, different sizes, try them on, and in the end, you only pay for what you want to keep, right? That was behind this concept, so much more than just considering one payment flow. Yeah.
Yes, so to conclude, what we wanted to show you now in the first part of the webinar, again, is kind of the higher integration of the still valid model of usability. Still today, usability plays a role. It's not completely resolved, but it's included in the concept of user experience, which would add hedonic and pragmatic things. And we believe above is the concept of human experience, where it is about réaliser le désir, to find that people really realize their desires. So we have even bigger concepts of hopes, of virtues, of values, and we have a more elaborated indicator systems about attention, emotion, and cognition, which is kind of combining these three concepts. And also, we tend to call now more and more the people humans, and not only users, which is a fair point, but to see a user just as a user already has a little limitation. So see him as a human. That might be a better idea. Then I hand over to Julia. Latest big trends.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, we still struggle sometimes because user experience is, it's such a fixed term that we still often talk of users. But of course, we think it wider. Yeah, our second chapter, that's a bit more, let's say, during the past decade maybe, and it's still going on. I wanted to bring up two other big topics, and one is agile development and what it means to UX research. And the other, at the same time, is the wish and the need for strategic impact for UX research. And that's, of course, not opposed to each other. That's kind of happening in parallel, right? And yeah. Let's start with agile development. And as most of you will know, actually, many of our clients have shifted their processes towards agile development by now. It's all about fast cycles, right? Of building something, ideate, create, and then measure and learn from measuring as early as possible, right? You probably know all those concepts. I brought a few up here that come along with agile. And that, of course, has a big influence on how you can do UX research in such a setup, right? So the goal is always to test as early as possible, as often as possible, so also as fast as possible. It changed a lot. We really had to adapt there over the years. It's also a lot about resource saving, right? That's especially in our economic system now a topic anyways. But it also really changes the way we work as a research agency there, right? So in most cases, it's a very close collaborations with our clients in those settings, and it's not so much about huge reports, right? It's about very clear and concrete takeaways for optimizations. And yeah, there are concepts like the Testing Tuesday, for example, plan in regular test sessions that make it possible to do UX research, even though it has to be slim and fast. And Michael, I think you wanted to bring in the triangle, right? I think this would be a good point now in time.
Yes, if we analyze that from, I think it's called design theory. Maybe it's a word is already a little bit too big, but if you analyze the current challenges within the iron triangle, you could simply analyze is within the sectors of time, cope, and scope. Time is, I think, pretty self-explanatory. It is what it is. The cope could be also seen as the resources. It's the money a company has to spend on research. Much more, for instance, the internal resources a company needs. For instance, if you want to do something and need your senior engineers, and that's a big hurdle. And the third point is certainly the target. What is it about? And within this kind of Aaron triangle, impact takes place. We thought through it. One of our answers is the digital experience sandbox, where already Julia has a lot of experience with in the realm of UX.
Yeah, actually, it's a great tool basically for the issues we just mentioned and brought up, right? So especially if resources are scarce, and that's usually the case, right? No matter if it's design resources, development resources, the sandbox is a great tool to facilitate the creation part, but also the ideation, right? So basically, in our sandbox, you can integrate your prototype. It can be what you have live on your website at the moment. And if we bring it into the sandbox, then it's really, really easy to work on creations, right? The different versions of a prototype, exchanging elements. So you don't have to wait, right, for a design agency. You don't have to wait until development has time to do your changes. It's really enabling, I would say. That's why we are so excited about it. And the cool thing is what we have in the sandbox, we can then also use for testing, right? So no matter if it's qualitative UX research or actual behavioral data. So yeah, for this, especially in agile setups, but in general for UX research, this is really, yeah, a big enabler. Okay. We brought another view. You brought it in, Michael. Thanks. This is how our friend Dennis Rudolph, as an artist, looks at our sandbox, right? It's a bit a different view, but you can still see how well the picture matches, right? You have the setup phase, then you have the ideation and creation, and then you have the showing and testing. So the sandbox metaphor works pretty well. But then this was more about resources, agile, fast iterations. One other thing I wanted to point out that it does not get lost. At the same time, there's a big need for impact, right? Like most of all, like really strategic impact. It was really eye-opening for me when we were at the UX 360 and how many talks the term impact was named. So yes, on the one hand, there's smaller, faster UX optimizations, but of course, UX research wants to be more, right? It wants to generate really important insights that really brings ahead the company. So yeah, there's still this need for a really deep understanding of target groups and their needs. And you've seen that in our human experience model, right? UX research is not only about A/B testing of versions, it goes far beyond. And it's a bit hard to put it in words, no matter if it's English or German for me, but this wish for really enlightening insights that really make a difference, right, for the strategy, for the future of the company. And we see this happening in parallel, right? So there's more demand for all those approaches that try to get the big picture, you could say, right? Like customer journeys, in-depth interviews, segmentations, personas. So everything that's really more about understanding your customers and your users. This I didn't want to leave unmentioned. And then we would move to our third chapter. Yeah, works well. We have 10 minutes left. Timing worked. Yeah, of course, we also wanted to have a look at what's going on currently, or since, I don't know, the past few years, and what it will be like in the next couple of years. And of course, there AI is the big topic, right? The impact it is going to have on research. And before I jump into that, of course, there's the big questions like, are we still going to talk to real participants, or is it going to be synthetic customers we talk to? And will we handle real data, or will we only talk about predictions? We took a look more at a tool now, and I am going to share some learnings about AI moderated interviews that might be interesting for you if you haven't tried it out yet. We tried a little evaluation. Before I come to that, there's one other aspect I think that's pretty important to keep in mind, and that is that the interaction with AI itself becomes a subject of research, right? So the whole usage behavior and interaction with the digital is fundamentally changing, right? You can already tell now with the usage of ChatGPT and LLMs in general, people chat more than they did before. But the whole, if you think of search for information, right, the whole behavior is shifting. Think of the little summaries you get in Google search now, right? So the whole interaction with AI, with large language models, we call it AI experience, right? That's important to look at how users, experience the interaction with AI. I think this will be more in focus, definitely in the coming years. But as we promised, we want to share some learnings about AI moderation, because the different tools that are available now are, of course, also interesting for UX research, right? It can, circling back to the resource topic, it can, of course, save time and effort. And what all the different tools for AI moderation promise is basically that you can have like qualitative insights on a quantitative scale, right? So get a lot of big samples in very short time. And most of the models are like chat-based, so it's like AI moderation by chat. You also have some by voice, it's both exist. And what they all have in common is that they really solve some problems, right? They are available in multiple language, more or less around the clock. You can really conduct countless interviews in a very short amount of time. And that's really true. We tested it. I've never seen a completed fieldwork that fast. And what you also instantly get is the learnings from it, right? You get the insights per click, so really right after field work. And that's something, those promises are kept, I can already say. We tested two pretty different approaches. One is a bit more like chat instead of online survey. And the other one is more really made for UX research. So it's with screen sharing, with video, so you can see what happened afterwards. And looking at the field work, you can say it worked pretty well. So you can brief the moderators. It feels a bit like a new trainee you brief for their first study, right? And you don't really know how well they are going to do. But so they really follow up if something is unclear. They ask to please clarify. You can ask them where to dig deeper, and they will do it. So the whole flow worked pretty well overall. Here, this was an example of the more chat version. And what's also nice, it's not a black box, right? So if you get the transcripts, or here in the other example, you get the videos with screen sharing. You can hear what participants say, because in this case, they can also think aloud with voice. So you can still go back and check what has happened. There were some a bit strange things we realized. So the reactions were sometimes a bit awkward. For example, for some reasons, you suddenly got a thumbs up or a smile back on very straightforward answers. Or when we asked them to dig deeper on a topic, sometimes you had the feeling they tried to ask back, even though it was already answered. And one thing that was really a downside was the timing. I tried it myself before we gave it out to participants. And my impression was, in my session, I spent at least half of the time looking at the spinning wheel, always waiting for the moderator to come back to me with the next question. So that was a bit, unpleasant, I would say, for participants. This part then is really cool, right? Getting the results is, as we know it now from LLMs, right? You get a nice summary. It's divided by topics, by chapters. If you had integrated ratings, you get the sums and the percentages. And of course, what's cool about it is that you can kind of chat with the results, right? You can ask questions. How often did this happen? Or how important was it? And that, and you will instantly get the answers. So this was really, I must say, pretty impressive. But the main topic is, of course, quality of results, right? And how far does it lead to valid results? And here we can say everything that has been said or written in the chat or in the interviews, that's summed up correctly. So that piece you can say, yes, check. But as this was UX research, we compared it. We tried to duplicate a study we had done ourselves, actually, right? My colleagues, Max, compared then the real test with the results here. And of course, everything that we took away from observing participants, that was totally missing, right? So in our report, we looked at the main issues we identified, and we must say that here with the tools, they only identified 20% of them, right? So the biggest majority, the biggest part got lost. And it's pretty obvious, right? The AI moderators cannot observe and understand what the participants do. And here's an example of what happened, right? Here in this example, there were these clickable tags on the pictures. Participants totally overlooked this and also missed the shortcut that meant. And of course, if they haven't noticed it, they won't mention it in the post-interview, right? And everything that's not being said and mentioned, of course, keeps hidden for the AI moderation. So summing up, you could say, yes, regarding fieldwork completion and also experience, okay. But quality of results compared to a moderated UX test, it can't be good, right? So there we must say that was not so good. But if you use it more for like standard interviews or instead of a survey, then yes, there's absolutely no reason not to try it out and maybe to use it in addition to your own study to have a larger sample. So yes, mixed evaluation, I would say. And as I mentioned, there's the other big topics, right? Like predictions. We also looked into predictions. I think, Michael, there you can take over once more?
Yeah, since we are also getting a bit out of time, we are also running a bigger
Oh, yes.
project about the prediction of attention, which is a very, very, very tricky topic, but would be certainly it's very tempting to predict attention. Well, if you would have the task, look at the T, then AI could predict it very well. That's not a heat map from real-world eye tracking. That's an AI-generated heat map. You just see AI-generated heat maps now. So the T is clear. AI could detect one T on a screen. But if the AI should find the O, it doesn't work at all. And also, if the T task is getting more complicated, like here, then the AI will not detect it. Our current experiences with using AI predictions are, at least for the field of UX, that they don't work at all. Outside UX, within some static image analysis for advertising, there's a little help, but if it comes to UX, simply predictive attention AIs don't work at all. Like here you see the real eye tracking on Netflix on the left side, and you see the specialized attention prediction on the right side. It's not in line. So UX is not resolved with attention predictions. That's it from our side. Thank you, Julia, for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We are sadly a little bit over time. Hope it was interesting. We are here, so we stay here in the meeting. If there are questions from your side, we're
I think
happy getting
we have to check in the chat, because I think in this webinar mode they can't unmute themselves, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And maybe just for the end, a little teaser regarding our sandbox. We have our Memex conference coming up next week that will focus on how our clients already make use of the sandbox and what great stuff they do with it. And we will also have an extra webinar on what we can do with sandbox in the UX context. My colleagues Karina and Daniel are going to do that the week after. So check it out and don't miss it. Okay, let me see. I can check if we see. No, I don't see any questions in the chat. So I think then we might as well say goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.